And what do you think of this topping combination?
Hot and spicy, just like you.
That's what I'm known for. Hello, everyone. It is Dan Souza and your favorite,
Lon Lamb.
Today, we're going to talk all about Neapolitan pizza. We decided it'd be really fun to get together and just geek out on one of Lon's amazing recipes. We're going to talk about so many aspects of pizza today, but we're going to go through everything for Neapolitan pizza, everything from how your dough comes together, the ingredients you should use, kneading, resting, how to shape it, how to top it, and how to bake it. Lon spent weeks and weeks developing the recipe we're going to talk about today, so she knows everything. I'm going to be peppering her with a lot of questions, and I have a little bit of knowledge to share myself.
You know plenty.
I know plenty.
Come on now.
Let's get into it. So we're talking about Neapolitan pizza, which is really an interesting form of pizza. It's one of the sort of original styles. It obviously comes from Italy. What I love about it, it's a type of food that has really strict rules around it.
Mostly.
Mostly?
Mostly. So there's this association that neither of us can pronounce in Italian, and we're not going to offend anyone by trying. We're going to call it the AVPN. And they have set up a bunch of guidelines so that you understand what makes a pizza Neapolitan. They care about the flour you use, the yeast you use, the water you use, how much of it you use, how you mix it, how you let it rest, how you stretch it, how you cook it, how big the pizza is. The list goes on and on and on. So the really interesting thing is the closer you get to Naples, the less people care. I think everyone in Naples is like, I'm Neapolitan. I'm making the pizza. It's a Neapolitan pizza. But, you know, in the States, certainly those rules are important guidelines, and they were really useful during recipe dev.
So we're going to follow a lot of these rules. We might break a few.
Kind of because we have to.
Yeah, and because we like doing that sort of thing. So one key element of Neapolitan pizza or any style like that is a really, really hot oven, sometimes up to 900 degrees. They're usually wood fired, and the pizza sits directly on the bottom of the, like on the stone inside the oven. And that's really hot. But what's cool is the air temperature above it gets really hot.
Yeah.
And that's what gets that crazy, like spotting, leoparding looking stuff.
The problem is at home, our ovens only get up to 550 if we're lucky and have a fancy oven. Some of us live in apartments and they don't quite get that hot. What most people do to deal with this for making pizzas at home is they increase the amount of water in that dough. The reason is if you have a slightly less hot oven, a home oven, your pizza's going to take longer to cook.
Like longer to get the crust and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so because it's taking maybe 3 times, 4 times as long to cook, it dries out.
Okay.
And the solution is to add more water. But what happens when you add water to a dough?
It gets a lot more slack, like a lot more like harder to work with.
Yeah, exactly. So step 1 was fixing that. And we're going to do it with a trick that the test kitchen uses a lot. It's a baking technique called a Tangzhong, and it's where we stash some of the water in the dough and kind of bind it up with flour.
Wait, so here we're already breaking the rules. So this is absolutely not traditional for this pizza dough, and I'm sure some of the Italians have already said no to this, but it's a really cool technique that has a great application here. So do stick with it. So Lana's going to work with a really special flour here. This is Doppio Zero, double zero flour. This is an Italian brand. There are some US brands as well. There's a lot of misunderstanding around this, I think, especially in the US, if you're not used to this flour. What the Doppio Zero actually refers to is the grind size, like how fine the flour is. And if you feel this flour, it is like buttery soft.
I mean, if you happen to have both types of flour around, bread flour or AP flour even, and a 00, you can literally feel the difference just between your fingers. This feels softer because it's just so fine, in the same way that like cornstarch feels softer because it's finer.
If someone couldn't find this, can they use all-purpose flour in your recipe, or?
I've tried this with bread flour. It kind of works okay. You definitely do not want to use all-purpose, but other brands of 00 are probably your best bet if you're not going to seek out this particular brand.
While Lon's getting this together, we're going to talk about numbers, and you're going to see the process of the recipe. If you just want to make this recipe, go to the America's Test Kitchen app, and you can see step-by-step instructions, all of the gram weights, and the whole shebang.
Yeah, I've got some flour and water in a bowl here, whisked it together, and I'm going to go cook this in the microwave. It's going to take about a minute. I'll be stirring occasionally, and Dan's going to explain what's happening while I go do that.
Okay, so Lon is making what we call a Tangzhong, and this is an Asian, kind of East Asian bread making technique. You see it in like milk breads and really, really fluffy breads. So what happens during that cooking process, so she's hydrated flour, now she's heating it up. And so what happens then is the starch gels and traps that water. So once that water is trapped in the flour, we're gonna add it into the rest of the dough, but it's not gonna act like regular water in there. So the dough will be less sticky, it will be less extensible, it'll be a little bit drier, and we'll show why that's such a benefit in a second.
All right, so this is what we got.
So you can tell it went from liquid to thickened. So we have a lot of that pre-gelatinized starch in there now. So when this goes into a dough, when it gets into the heat of the oven, that moisture is still gonna turn to steam and you're still gonna get all this nice puff. So you're gonna get the benefit of a higher hydration dough. You get greater oven spring and a more moist interior. What you won't have is that water kind of free flowing everywhere and giving you a dough that's sort of loose. If you've ever tried to stretch a piece of dough and you've torn a hole in it because it gets too thin too easily, that's because it's too hydrated. So this gives us the best of both worlds.
Here is this. We're gonna dilute this even more. 265.
It's all 2.5 teaspoons.
Yep.
1.25 sugar.
Yep.
You're gonna have to explain this one because this is also breaking a rule.
The reason we're adding sugar is home ovens just don't get as hot. You're not gonna get quite the amount of color and crisping that you want. The sugar is gonna help with both of those things.
And I also wanna point out, we did a lot of measuring in grams on the scale. We're also using measuring spoons for these small amounts of salt and sugar. You can totally measure them with a gram scale. You need a very sensitive, smaller one. At the end of the day, these ingredients, they don't clump up and mix differently based on how hard you scoop like flour does. So they're very accurate to measure with measuring spoons. We find it really fast and easy for small amounts. So a half teaspoon of yeast. Mm-hmm. So we're using a small amount of yeast here because we're doing a long, slow fermentation. That's a hallmark of Neapolitan pizza, but it's also just great in general for a lot of doughs. You get really nice flavor. You don't get the boozy sort of alcohol flavors you get with fast and higher temp fermentation. And that small amount of yeast is totally enough to do the job. Yeah. A lot of people end up using too much in general and it tastes yeasty as opposed to like the dough, like the flour and what it really is.
We also have so much water in here that's gonna help with the rise. And so we just really don't need as much yeast.
Yeah.
All right, last up is the flour. So I need 591 grams.
So now that we've got flour in the mix, we can talk about hydration percentage. Now, hydration percentage is always the amount of flour over the amount of water.
Let me try. Baker's percentages are calculated based on the amount of flour in the dough. So you take the amount of any other ingredient, water in this case, divided by the weight of the flour, and that's your hydration.
And so in traditional Neapolitan pizzas, the range is probably in like the low 60s, 60 to 62% hydrated. And that gives you, in a 900 degree wood-fired oven, the perfect results, according to the rules. What's our hydration percentage here? Because I think this is pretty far off, right?
Yeah, I'm at 79.
79?
Just under, 78 point something.
Wow.
Yeah, but if you look at this, it doesn't look quite as soupy as you would expect a 79% hydration dough to look.
No, not at all. When I do like a rustic loaf or a pizza bianca or something that is like, in almost 90, it's very, very liquidy.
I am bringing this dough together, but I'm not kneading it. It's more of a stirring and squishing kind of motion. You're not really looking for gluten development here. Some of it's going to happen. That's incidental because you're manipulating the dough. But what I'm looking for is no dry pockets of flour. So at this point, I'm going to clean all this dough off my hands because it's going to make beautiful pizza. And then we're going to cover this and let it rest for 20 minutes.
Do we get to just hang out for 20 minutes too now?
No, I'm going to make you talk about autolyse. It's great having Dan around. I don't have to explain any of the science.
There we go, unless I mess it up and then Lon has to take over. So this 20 minutes is what is referenced as an autolyse. What that usually means is a period where you don't have every ingredient in there. You have the flour and the water, maybe a couple of other ingredients, and you give it time for that water to hydrate the flour as much as possible. You get some really light gluten formation that happens, and then you can have the rest of your ingredients in that would interfere with gluten development, and then do your real mixing. We're doing kind of an alternative version of it here where we do have all the ingredients in, but this will still allow that flour to hydrate. So when we go to knead and sort of stretch this dough, it'll come together a lot faster.
What we want to do now is some gluten has formed. We're going to do a little folding to kind of align the strands that are there and kind of set up some structure for the dough. And it's really easy. You just grab it and pull it towards the center. And you can see that it stretches. That's your sign that there's been some gluten development. I do 6 to 8 folds. Doesn't really matter all that much.
So for someone who doesn't do a lot of folding and maybe does kneading or maybe even uses like a machine to do it, what's the real benefit of doing the fold?
No machines.
No machines involved, which is a huge benefit. You don't have to get out a machine to do it.
Yeah, like a lot of the no-knead breads out there make use of folds. You need a flour that has high gluten potential. You need a good amount of water because water helps the gluten molecules kind of float around. If it's a really dry dough, then you just have to get in there and mechanically mush those proteins together to get them to link up. But when there's enough water, they're just kind of floating around and they just like make friends. And you develop a really awesome gluten network. So
that was it. I just want to look real quick.
Oh yeah, no, that's it.
Super simple. And you can see that it has a little bit more like cohesive structure to it. Like it barely sticks to my finger now.
Yeah, that's the hydration bit. That's the starches and even some of the proteins holding onto the water. But at this point, we're going to cover this and let it hang out on the counter for 90 minutes. That's mostly for flavor. And then we're going to slow it down by popping it in the fridge.
Can I open it?
Is this you Christmas morning?
Yes. Ooh, this looks nice.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
All right, so before we do the refrigerated portion of the fermentation, I want to pre-shape the dough. And the reason for that is when we go to stretch these into rounds, if you take the time to pre-shape now, the stretching process goes so much more smoothly. You get this beautiful circular, non-blobby pizza. That's what we want, right?
So I've learned this lesson over and over again as I was like getting into pizza, even buying like store-bought pizza dough and working with it, is I would always, close to the time that I was making it, round it into a perfect ball, let it sit for about an hour, and then try to stretch it out. And because I had worked that gluten so much so recently, it would spring back like crazy. It just goes back and back. It doesn't matter how much you try to get it out. So pre-shaping it, doing this hard work on the gluten now, and then letting it relax makes it an absolute breeze. And you'll see when we do this, like such a breeze to actually stretch out that I can actually make pretty nice, probably not as good as you, but I can actually make pretty nice looking pizzas now.
I'm just scraping this out onto a well-floured counter. I don't really stress using too much flour here. You don't have to do this, but because I'm me.
You don't have to do this, but Lon says you probably should do it.
No. I just like to make sure that it's pretty square so that when I go to divide it into 4, I'm getting equal pieces.
So what you're looking for, like 250 grams, probably, or something around there?
Somewhere in the 260 to 270 range.
Okay.
I don't take the time to make sure they're actually all the same size. I just want them to be close. What I do is I want to take all of this goopy, wet, sticky dough and move it to the center. And I'm just going to pick up the dough and bring the edges towards the middle. It's a little bit sticky. I'm not worried about using too much flour, but I kind of work my way around the center. And this is doing 2 things. All that sticky stuff is getting pushed to the center and hidden, but also I'm stretching the gluten around the surface of the dough ball. That's the thing that's going to help the dough keep a nice round shape. So pinch the seams. There's no trick to this. It's just a lot of pinching. And then I flip it over. And because this dough ball is too big to round with just one hand, you're going to need 2. I find it's easier for me to just cup it and kind of do one of these things.
Air.
I do it in the air. And you can kind of feel it tightening.
Yeah, like a little bit comes through so you can see where that tension is pulling.
Yeah, but that's it.
I like that tech.
All right, you do it your way.
Okay, so I definitely do the same thing in terms of bringing those parts in, maybe a little less delicate, and it's got a grab, so you can kind of see that it starts to go there. And this is a strange technique, and I like how you're doing it there because it's maybe easier to even teach.
Yeah.
Here, it's not about my hands on top. I'm not doing much to it there. It's really my hand dragging and my pinkies dragging under there. And so doing that, I keep kind of just pulling that top dough down underneath. And same thing, it just starts to smooth the top there a little bit.
Yeah, yours looks more like a magic trick. When you pull your hands away, suddenly it's perfect.
Abracadabra.
Right?
Pretty good, right?
Yeah. We need to get these into the fridge so they have to land on a baking sheet.
Okay.
I want to make sure the baking sheet is greased so that the dough doesn't stick and we can get it off easily.
Okay, so like coat like that?
Yeah, perfect. Right?
Oh, those are beautiful.
Yeah.
Into the fridge?
Yeah. So I had Dan set up our oven earlier and I made sure he used a steel. The reason for that is these things transfer heat so much faster and more efficiently than a stone. If you have a stone, go ahead and use it. You don't have to go and buy one of these, but these just gets you that crust a little bit faster. And then once the pizza comes out, they also heat up a little bit faster. And so that sped up recovery time means that you don't have to wait as long for the stone to kind of come back up to temperature, which is what happens here.
Yeah, fast recovery time. It just kind of checks all the boxes a little bit better.
Yeah.
Stones are really wonderful, but heats up faster and then pumps that heat into your dough faster, so you have an even faster cook there.
Yeah.
Now, if you've purchased a stone and then you bought a steel, which is what I've done, you can actually do a really cool setup that is great for pizza parties where you're turning out pizza after pizza. And it's to use this as sort of a heat sink. So you put this on top of the stone and you heat them both in the oven for the same amount of time, that same hour. And this absorbs a lot of heat. You do your first pizza on it and that starts to use up some of the heat that's in the steel, but it's always being backfilled by the stone. So that's kind of an extra setup there. You can do maybe 3 or 4 pizzas in a row as opposed to having to stop and preheat for a while in between.
Yeah. You got any hot tips about peels?
Yes. Oh my God. I thought you would never ask. So I'm a big pizza peel guy. I have a lot of thoughts and opinions here. So I have 3 now that we're in the equipment corner to talk about. So a lot of times people want just one tool that gets the job done. And I totally understand that from a peel perspective. They're not the smallest things in the world.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a small apartment kitchen, so I feel that. But I do keep 2. And I recommend that people keep 2 because they have really different purposes. So there is a loading pizza peel, which both of these are. And then there is the removal pizza peel, which is this metal one here. This is a loading one here. It doesn't have a very sharp edge on the end here. It's not going to be fabulous for scraping and sort of getting under the pizza. But the real reason this is so wonderful for loading is it is sort of a porous wood texture right?
It's just not as smooth.
It's
a little bit coarser than this metal.
And so there's literally less connection points between your dough and the peel. So the risk of sticking is a lot less. So that's why wood is so fabulous for launching a pizza in.
Now, if you only have one of these, the thing you need to do is to use a little bit of extra flour.
Yeah.
It's not great on the palate if you use too much, but it does okay.
And work a little quicker. So if you get your pizza on there, you don't want to let it sit for a long time. Now, if you're like me and you like having all the time in the world, then you want to go for one of these super peels. This is really my favorite one. And so this is derived from a tool that bakers use to launch loaves into ovens. So it has this canvas, this kind of cotton canvas covering here that you add a little bit of flour to. And it's almost like ball bearings on a surface. It's very, very smooth. So what you can do is you can build your pizza right on here, let it sit for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and it's not going to stick. I find it really, really incredible. It takes a little bit of a learning curve to get the technique for it. So I'm going to show you when we're actually launching pizzas, but it's really interesting. So basically you're never just moving the peel, you're also moving this at the same time, whether you're going into the oven this way, or you can actually pick a pizza up off the counter, which I'm going to show to you, my magic trick of all magic tricks, when we get to that point, by going in and under it this way.
So the metal peels are perfect for getting a pizza off of the stone. They're very flat, they're very thin. It's easy to slip them underneath your cooked pizza. But, if you only have one of those, we've got tips for getting around that too.
And I think a lot of times this happens to me. It probably does not happen to you, where maybe you get a little hole in the dough and some cheese and sauce goes through and actually sears onto the surface. That's when this is so key because you can really get in there and sort of scrape it off. It's not super sharp, but a thin edge really does help a lot. But yeah, it's a little harder with the wood there.
Yeah.
Dough alone does not make a pizza, so we need some toppings. Traditional Neapolitan rules dictate very simple toppings. Some tomato, some cheese, some fresh basil, extra virgin olive oil.
Salt.
So we're gonna go a really simple version like that Lon is gonna do. And then I am going to ruin the entire thing by making, I'm not even gonna say, but I'm gonna make a style of pizza that does not belong in the Neapolitan world, but it's one of my favorites. So we'll follow the rules and then break them.
So I've got a can of whole peeled tomatoes here, and you really do want to use whole peeled tomatoes and not crushed or diced. Definitely do not use diced. Only the best looking tomatoes go into these cans. Everything else that may be a little bruised, maybe a little not quite perfectly ripe, they get used for all of the other types of tomato products. So you're going to get the best flavor and texture by starting with whole peeled. We're going to use a food processor today. If you have a stick blender and don't mind a little bit of a mess, you can just put one of those in here and do that. The thing that you're going to notice here is we're using salt and tomatoes. That's it. No olive oil, no garlic, no dried oregano or red pepper flakes. All of those other flavors, if you want them, they go on the pizza. They don't go in the sauce.
So it's just for control, so you can sort of do what you want?
Traditional.
Traditional, yeah, okay. Sometimes tradition just makes sense.
So fresh mozz is the traditional cheese, or like a buffalo mozz. It's a little bit different than what you would use for like a New York slice. There you're using pizza cheese, you're using something low moisture. Here we don't really need to worry about that. We want that sweet, milky, mild flavor. So we're gonna start with these.
And I think one of the big differences is when you're cooking something like a New York style pizza or something that bakes for longer, that lower moisture cheese is really good because it doesn't break. If you use a fresh mozzarella and you bake it for too long, you get that kind of rubbery consistency. So this really lines up with the bake time as well. Obviously, it's beautifully milky and lovely texture.
Yeah, so while Dan is tearing up our cheese so that it melts quickly, I'm gonna grate a little pecorino. You could use pecorino or Parmesan for this, but I just wanna add a little bit of complexity and nuance to the flavor and some salt, and this is a nice way to do it.
So in my mind, pizza is pepperoni pizza, always has been. It's how I grew up. So this dough is not meant for this, but I wanna do a pepperoni pizza. So I've got a couple different kinds here. One is the pre-sliced stuff that you easily buy at the store. So we definitely have that on hand. But I also have a log of pepperoni here. And the reason I have this is I want cupping pepperoni. This was not a thing that people talked about for, I don't know, until I feel like sort of recently.
Yeah.
So there are some pepperoni that during the baking process and in the heat of the oven, the edges start to kind of tighten up and curl up, and you get this little cup that holds on to pepperoni oil. It's just like sitting in there. As a kid, like some pizzas had it, some didn't. I never really totally understood it, but now we know that we can get it by cutting our own from this kind of pepperoni here, and I really love it. You get crispy edges and then all that pepperoni fat in the middle. Some people don't like it, and then you can go for the flat style here.
The casing that was used to make the pepperoni, it contracts more than the pepperoni itself, and so that's why the cupping happens. And having a slightly thicker casing is going to get you better cupping. So while Dan is wrapping this up, couple other things we need equipment-wise. First is semolina. It's a durum flour, and it's just a really nice way to keep your pizza dough from sticking to your work surface and your peel. It's a lot coarser than 00 flour, which means it doesn't stick to the dough as well. You can use a lot of it, and anything that you don't need just falls right off. It's really nice.
It's like if you grew up with cornmeal crusts on pizzas, it's like somewhere between cornmeal and using the 00 flour. So it's like slightly bigger ball bearings, and that helps it sort of slide around. But yeah, I feel like it doesn't get in the way of the eating experience in the same way as like a very dry, fine dough flour does. We've got a rested dough here.
Yeah, so this fermented in the fridge overnight. About an hour ago, we pulled this out of the walk-in to let it come up to temp. Having it be close to room temp makes it easier to work with. So step one, we want to take our launching peel and toss some semolina on top.
You're going to use this guy?
Yeah, I just, I want to make sure I have a place to land on after I've stretched my dough. When you try to get the dough ball up from the tray it's in, try not to stretch it in just one direction or push it in just one direction. That's going to change the shape of it. It's going to make it really hard to keep it round.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So you take a handful of semolina and just dump it right on top.
Oh, that's cool.
Right, and then you spread it out. And the nice thing about using semolina is any excess that you don't need, it's just going to fall right off. So you don't have to stress.
It only grabs what it can. Yeah.
And then this is especially important if your dough balls are touching. You don't want to be scraping them off. You want to just cut between, and then you're going to use your bench scraper to push the semolina under the dough ball. It'll get it off of the sheet pan. And you just kind of work your way around, and you just push everything under. And at this point,
really cool.
It's freed from the pan, and you've generally kept it round.
That's a really cool technique.
It's a great trick,
really
right?
different. I'm so used to picking it up and then getting it into a bowl of flour. And during that process, you get flour everywhere, which is good.
Yeah.
But during that process, there's always some stretching.
There's like a little...
Yeah. So this is how you start more circular. That's very smart.
I'm going to scoop this up, plop it right over. So we're going to start in the middle, and I'm going to do this in two portions. I'm going to push down. I'm making almost like a little... It looks almost like a little raft or lifeboat. And then you pick it up and flip it over, and you do that again, and you have this beautiful little round. I'm not worried about overworking the center of the dough. You can mush it as much as you want, and that's not a problem.
Wow, that was so simple.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you pick it up, you slide your fingers underneath so that you're not squishing your rim, and drape it over your fists, And then even though this dough has so much water in it,
Yeah.
it's really easy to work with. It's not going to stretch too fast for you. You don't have to keep up with the dough.
Yeah.
You can kind of slowly work your way around.
You get almost that window pane effect.
Yeah.
But with some safety that it's not going to break through.
Yeah, so that's it. I'm looking for a maybe 10, 11-inch round. Each pizza serves one.
That's a really beautiful line.
That's ready to go.
Wow, that's so beautiful.
Really easy.
So we got to move kind of quickly here, right? Because you're already on here.
Yeah, so we certainly have a little bit more leeway because we're on this wood peel, but not a ton. You don't want to be having this hanging out and going to take a phone call at this point.
Yeah, okay.
We've got our tomato sauce. It's not a ton. It's just like maybe 2 tablespoons, 1.5, 2. Every time I do this, I'm like, is that enough? It's enough.
It's enough.
And just spread it out to the edges. And then I want to season that sauce with some pecorino, maybe like a generous tablespoon.
I love putting that underneath and having it just be like this layer that kind of like what really savory flavor that is under there, but the melting cheese goes on top.
Yeah, and then a couple of ounces of our mozzarella. The other thing that I learned while doing this was how to launch one of these successfully. Took a couple of tries, but I finally figured it out. The key is don't jerk the peel around.
Okay.
Just like that's it. But I'm gonna kind of show you how to do it here because it's hard to see if we're in the oven. We're just gonna be in the way. Let's imagine that this is our little pizza peel and back of the oven, front of the oven.
Okay.
Before you walk anywhere with your pizza, get the pizza to the front of the peel. Set your peel down, inch or so from the back of the peel or the back of the stone.
Yep.
And then you're gonna wiggle, and it's not like a broad motion. It's kind of it's pretty small.
Little micro motions. Yeah.
And the goal is to get just an inch or two.
Yep.
Just an inch or two of the dough onto your stone. At this point, that's gonna stick to whatever your cooking surface is, and you're gonna use that to gently wiggle your way out. If you mess up, if it tears, if it's not centered, whatever the problem, don't touch it.
Don't touch it. Whatever is done, right?
Well,
Once it's on there, eventually you can release it, but it's like a steak hitting a pan or something. You gotta beat it.
It's gonna stick for about the first 2 minutes. Let it stick. It will unstick itself. That's when you go in and do any readjusting you need to do. But if you try to go in right away and fix it, it's gonna tear more and make a bigger mess.
Yeah.
You wanna use your super easy magic
pick
peel.
it back up.
Yeah. And go launch this thing.
Okay, so it is time to launch this pizza. So we have our oven at 550 degrees. We have that steel 8 inches from the broiler element. So we're gonna put the pie in, turn the broiler on in about 4 to 5 minutes. We're gonna get a really, really beautiful pizza. That broiler heats the top in the same way that an oven would. So you get great browning on top and bottom. I'm so excited for this.
Yeah, let's
Wanna
go.
do it? Let me get that nice stick. Oh, beautiful. All right, broil, high, start. But this one's beautiful.
Yeah.
That shaping technique keeps it so nice and round that you're not getting any like errant bubbles sort of popping out of it, which I really love.
Yeah.
You can see the cheese is starting to melt. And the crust is setting now around the outside. I don't see much browning quite yet, but it'll happen fast.
We're getting like bubbling of the tomato sauce and cheese, which is what I want. Not bad.
Some good spotting.
Yeah. All right, let's get this out of here. It's a poofy crust.
This is gorgeous.
Yeah. Earlier, I was saying that garlic and oregano and really all the flavorings that come with pizza don't go in the sauce.
Yes.
Now is when they go on.
Okay.
So oregano, a little pepper. I like fresh basil. I like kind of the way it smells when it's not cooked. If you want to have a more cooked basil vibe, you want to stash that basil under the melting cheese.
Oh, it's kind of,
And a little oil.
Well, this looks so good.
Here's our little pizza. A lot of times this pizza is going to come out and you'll be given a knife and a fork to eat it. It doesn't come sliced because it's meant to serve one.
Cheers.
I'm still eating it with my hands. I can't help it.
What? She tells me the rules and then she breaks them?
Mm-hmm. But how great is that crust?
It was so good. I'm gonna spin it so can see what Lon is talking about with that super puffed, light interior. The center has that nice moisture and density to it, but then the outside is just gorgeously light and airy. Well, I hope you have room for one more because I have to make, now that we've done it perfectly and the way that it should be, I have an abomination that I have to make for you. Are you ready?
Can't wait.
Okay, time for pizza number 2. This is
The abomination.
the abomination. This is a childhood favorite. We'll get to the toppings in a second, but let's do the stretching first. I've used cornmeal and I've used like really fine flour on pizzas. I've really never used semolina like this, and I kind of love it.
Yeah, it's really nice. Like the fact that you don't have to worry about using too much. It's like you're giving the most gentle back massage.
This is what I want for myself, you know? Kind of put out into the world what you're looking for. Bring this up here.
You like to stretch it towards you instead of forwards?
This is how I've done it for so long. You know, you get into like muscle memory of certain things, and that's sort of just like walking around it. That's kind of just what I got used to.
Yeah.
So this guy, I'm not adding anything fresh to this. This already has a little bit of flour on it.
Yeah.
Even between sessions, I don't really do much to clean it off unless it has something that's charred, and you can actually wash these. But I like to just kind of leave that flour in there. Another nice thing about this, so I'll transfer this over now, is it's got more texture to it than the wood so that it'll actually hold on to it a lot more. Not that this dough springs back. This is like the most extensible, easy to stretch dough. But if you have one that does more, it just locks in place, which is really, really nice. Awesome. Okay. So far, so traditional. You know what the real pizza party trick is to have like multiple super peels at your house. Because you could build like 5 pizzas, have them all waiting.
If I like go push your cats around and dig in the closet, am I gonna find like a stack of these easy peels?
No, I wish. I only really have one, but I could totally go for more.
All right, this is still pretty traditional.
It's pretty traditional. I'm gonna go heavier on
All right.
our dry cheese here. So this is pecorino. I often do this with parm too. I would normally use a drier, like part skim mozz here to get that like gooey, stretchy sort of thing going. But I'm gonna work with the fresh stuff today. And then the ingredient that all pizza has to have, pepperoni. So I'm using some hand-cut, artisan hand-cut pepperoni. But this is hand-cut.
Some hand-cut pepperoni.
Some hand-cut pepperoni. And so this is coming off of, like a log of pepperoni. And what we're hoping to see is some cupping on this. So we trap all the little pepperoni juices and have those crispy little edges. We'll see. We'll see if they all puff, but that's always a fun game.
Yeah.
All right, so that's all I'm gonna do for now, but I'm not totally done. All right, so let's get this guy over to the oven and we'll do the same thing. So we're gonna go in on that preheated 550 degree steel. We're gonna kick to broil and then watch this thing just blow up. I mean, not blow up in a bad way. You gotta rebrave, you gotta get in there for this kind of pizza peel. Start.
Oh, you're getting great cupping already.
I think so, right? All right.
Look at this.
Oh my God.
It's molten.
It is. Look at these little pools of pepperoni oil. Yeah, so they cupped. Not like the most cupping I've ever seen in, but you have nice little edges there.
Yeah.
Pepperoni oil is trapped. Don't do a napkin blot on this.
Yeah.
I think that was cool in the 90s.
Oh
we
my God,
don't do
the
that here.
horrified look I just made.
You're like, wait, what happened?
What?
Okay.
Why
so
would you blot?
my last step here is some really beautiful spicy banana peppers.
Oh, nice.
With these banana peppers, you just get this punch of acidity and crunch.
Yo, this is a banana pepper pizza plus pepperoni.
Lon, it's my pizza. I'm gonna hit it with a little bit more of this. I just love how it sort of melts into the top. Let's get onto the cutting board.
Thicken with cheese.
Yours was much more perfect, like in terms of the crust there. Like I'm a little looser. I don't make as pretty a food. And so that definitely comes through here.
Now you're just looking for compliments.
But I bet it's gonna taste pretty good. All right, ready? You know, if this was a New York style, that'd be like straight out. So there's a little bit, which is good. This is what you want. You're not supposed to eat it this way, but like you want that softness there.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks so good. See that beautiful crust? Cheers, cheers. Just baked through, moist, creamy, so wonderful. And what do you think of this topping combination?
Hot and spicy, just like you. I feel like this is one of those, like, I'm going to end up with pizza fat, like, kind of down my apron.
Well, that's why we're doing this last. So, you know, it doesn't matter.
We can make a mess.
We can make a mess. So you can get this recipe in our app or at americastestkitchen.com. In the app, we have something called Cook Mode, where you can watch Lon do step-by-step of every single element of this recipe, so you'll get the exact same results. That's a great way to do it.
Also, whether you're looking for that recipe on the website or on the app, if you scroll to the end of the recipe, we'll offer some variations there. I did a riff on Dan's abomination of a pizza.
You did.
But there are also a couple of vegetarian options. There's a fontina and artichoke one. There's
that sounds
a
good.
taleggio and mushroom one. They're fantastic. You can also kind of steal the techniques for the vegetables there to riff on your own pizza.
What's the next one you're going to make for me?
Let's go hunting in the walk-in and see what we can find.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's go.